One of the perhaps more exhausting and complex techniques that people will use as part of the baiting and gatekeeping processes in the dark rhetoric application is the game of definitions. And you'll hear this a lot when somebody is essentially trying to move an argument into this sort of perpetual spiral of definition after definition after definition. That's not to essentially move the conversation forward, but to control the conversation completely. So you'll hear people do this. They'll say things like, well, it depends on what you mean by X. Or they'll say things like, can you define Y? And they'll use these kinds of deflections from the conversation to essentially get you into this spiral of definitions, which they will then use to set up a straw man to bait you into participating in an argument where words don't mean what they mean. They mean some sort of mutually agreed upon definition for that intervening conversation, and then don't apply elsewhere. You'll see this a lot as a technique in places where emotion is driving the conversation, where an unformed thought process is driving the conversation. So define what you mean by X often turns into this ad hominem attack about, well, you're not a doctor, you don't know X or Y or Z, or you're not a lawyer, so you don't know A, B, and C. You'll find that these definition requirements that you get to in a conversation, again, are just used as a control tactic to stop progress against the original line of conversation and move to this exhausting way of essentially delaying and avoiding moving the conversation forward. You'll find that the definitions you would agree to in a conversation like that immediately get the goalpost game going, where it's like, well, you'll get the whataboutism. So you'll have a definition that you kind of agree upon, like what I mean by X is these things, and then their immediate response will be, well, what about these other things? Are they not X? And then therefore not applicable to the conversation, when in fact they may be core to the conversation. As you go through and see these techniques sort of in application, understand that, again, the entire intent here is to retain some level of power and control in the conversation. It's an ego gratification thing. It's a, look at me, I'm important, I'm trying to debate the real issues here. It is designed by intent to keep things as they are. It is not designed, ironically, to persuade or move anyone in a conversation. It is designed to keep things as they are. It's designed to keep the confusion in place, because the confusion in some way is beneficial, because then they can come in and save the day and try and disambiguate the confusion or what have you. It doesn't really matter in many cases the sort of whether or not the people that are applying these techniques know that they're doing it or why they're doing it. But that they are doing it puts us in a position as people that are trying to improve our skill in this space. It gives us opportunities to spot it, identify it, and kind of move through it and get to a better space. When you find yourself in a situation where you're playing the game of definitions, you can say, well, if you want to read the textbook definition, let's use that. That's fine. But again, that immediately invites whose textbook and whose definition, and well, they're biased, and therefore, again, it's ad hominem attack after definition attack after, gatekeeping, what have you. Again, when you need to move through there, through the perpetual definition place, you might just identify that, for example, in the conversation, it seems like we're spending a lot of time defining stuff without moving the actual conversation forward. Or, how does this apply? How do these definitions apply to the argument at hand, right? If we get to a concrete definition, will you then engage? If the answer is no, then obviously, it doesn't really matter. When you see this come up in conversation again, when you do it yourself or when other people do it, you want to identify that that's pointing to a part of you that is effectively trying to not move, right? So as you go through it, give it proper self-reflection and see if you can spot it out in the wild.